over 1,500 beard oil companies out there. And you guys just hit Inc. 5000, which is amazing.
The original concept behind Fable was the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. She developed, well, why don't you turn it into Fable? It means storytelling.
We made the Inc. 5000 in just Fable Beard Company. Fable Beauty, I don't even think we would be eligible yet.
You're the integrator in the business. You're the visionary.
He feels like every second we don't move, that's our fault. Moving in the direction we need to go, then we're the ones responsible for not getting where we want to be.
Money becomes easier to make, but stress becomes harder to manage.
It is hard. A lot of people think, oh, more revenue, that means it's just easier. No, no, no.
I've been following what y'all been doing on LinkedIn, and I thought, man, you're hitting a lot of the things that entrepreneurs, first time, second time entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs need to know about. And I'm like, this is what I want to talk about.
We just held our first in-person event on Saturday.
Okay. What was that about?
We call it Fable Fest.
Oh, Fable Fest.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were very privileged in the fact that the tornadoes, literally, tornado, Fable Fest, tornado.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
our event ended at 5. We got our last customers out of our warehouse at 5 and got the tent tarp off, and then tornadoes came in and like almost blew everything up.
We didn't have a tornado, but the storm came through, and then the tornado was in Nashville.
Yeah. So y'all hosted like a customer kind of appreciation.
Yeah.
Fable Fest.
We normally do like our annual anniversary sale. And we decided we were going to do like this in-person thing. So we partnered with a brewery and had like a special beer that collaborated with a special scent profile. So like it was only available there, and like the scent notes matched the beer tasting notes, and like the artwork and everything matched. So they came out.
We had a food truck with a custom menu.
Yeah, so you could order the Warlock sandwich or the Wizard's Cuban, or whatever the menu was, is themed for that. And we just sent out an email to our customers and we said, hey, we're having this. And
one email,
and we had like 100 to 150 people show up. People drove from Colorado
to
come in. They stayed over in hotels. They came in dressed as characters that they love.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah,
and we didn't know what to. So like, we didn't know what to expect.
Yeah,
because we've never done anything like this. So we didn't even. And then with the terrible weather, we're like, well, half the people that said that they're going to come probably aren't going to come. Understandably, because the weather was like terrible. We also didn't know, like, is it going to rain the whole time on us? What do we do? Like,
we expected very little, and what ended up becoming was like a few people started showing up, and then we knew it was kind of serious when us and our employees had to carry around metallic pens with us because we were signing autographs all day.
No way.
So they were bringing in like the little character bottles with the artwork of each individual person and employee that worked for us, and they were going around and collecting signatures from all of our employee group and everything.
This is real. Customers are willing to drive from Colorado into Franklin, Tennessee to come to a customer appreciation.
Yeah, at the warehouse.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Tell just for people that are watching in, tell everybody about what Fable Beard Company is and what you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, we are the fantasy adventure storytellers of men's grooming and the beauty industry. We take our storytelling and concepts and character art and try to turn our products into like real life people. We do that with our employees too. We all take on personas. I'm the wizard, she's the princess, and we just kind of roll with that as our alter egos.
Love it.
And it started obviously with his love of growing facial hair. So it started as a hobby because he was growing a beard and he was consuming products, and I thought they were terrible. And I said, those are terrible. Yeah. Please don't put that on your face. And he was like, that's it. We're gonna do it better. And he just started researching formulas, making formulations, and Fable was born. And then 12 months ago, we launched Fable Beauty, which is an extension of Beard, but they are different brands. So
when I first met y'all, I was really impressed with the cycle of content and creativity that you have around the scents and the product and the profiles. Talk a little bit about how you come up with that creativity and how that drives ultimately sales, but also customer loyalty. I think you told me this story about one time a customer literally tattooed one of your
Mul-
characters?
Yeah, we're up to 15 tattoos now.
15.
And, what's really wild is one of the customers that came to Fable Fest has a tattoo of a dragon. But not only is it one of our dragon characters, it is a tattoo of a tattoo that a character has on our bottle. So the character on the bottle has the tattoo, and he got that
Unreal.
tattoo.
Think about that from a perspective of like how many companies, like for-profit businesses,
Yeah.
that have such fan loyalty that their customer base is willing to put a tattoo on their body, or a logo, or a character like.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of what makes us so special too, though, is that neither of us really came, although I do have a business degree, but neither of us really came from a business background. We were and especially e-commerce is still relatively new in general. So we both kind of jumped into this with figure it out as you go.
Mm-hmm.
But it came from a point of this being a hobby. It came from a point of this being a passion, of enjoying this type of thing. He's very into this type of world. And so it came from his love. And then he's able to really, truly express that to others because he is very passionate about gaming and things like that. And it was a hobby for him.
Yeah, I think she's being a little modest. The princess doesn't really like to give herself credit on this. It started out with an idea on a napkin for me, but like the original concept behind Fable was the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I wanted to like use characters and storytelling, but like, oh, I'm going to tell, war and famine or whatever, and like tie all this stuff together. And then the princess sitting across from me, she's like, well, what happens after the four? And I'm like, I have no idea. And then she developed, well, why don't you turn it into Fable? It means storytelling. And then the stories never have to end and the characters never have to end. And now we're almost up to 275 characters across both brands.
But we did start we did start more of like, we're just going to launch this character and we come up with a concept and we come up with a scent profile that goes with it. We are a lot more in depth now, and we are planning and pre-planning the adventures that we're going on months in advance.
Wow.
There is very much an aspect of like, we want to tell this story. So in fall, we did a series called the Broken Mirror series, and we took some of our best sellers and they went missing, and their alter egos came out, and it took them on an adventure.
We ended up bringing out our employee, Danny is a character called the Warlock, and he ended up like cursing the entire land that the characters live in, the land of Boron, and took those like most popular characters that we've had out for years, and we just like put a missing poster sign on their product image and just like took them off for sale. And people were like, what happened? What's going on? And then like the distiller turned into the poisoner, and the marksman turned into the mercenary. And like we developed these like alter egos, and they were available for sale for like a few months.
And genuinely, there were stories being written. It wasn't just like we were telling fables along the way. So every new release, we would kind of write an extension to the story, and people were super engaged with it. But at the end of it, if that's not your thing and you just want some really great products, like there was that too.
Right.
So, we were able to kind of express our creativity down to the last little detail. And truly, we are just getting started in the storytelling aspect. I mean, it feels like a little snippet of what's to come.
Well, I was doing some research before we hopped on this, and it was like over 1,500 beard oil companies out there in the world, and you guys just hit Inc. 5000. Congratulations!
Thank
doing
you.
about $5 million a year in e-commerce, direct to consumer sales, which is amazing. Very few businesses, the odds of doing that is very small. You've locked in on this concept of identifying who your ideal customer profile is, and you talked a little bit about the gaming industry. Or the gaming interest, and I'd like to you guys to talk about a little bit about like how you identified what they wanted or what they liked and their interest, and how you brought that into your storytelling, into your brand.
Yeah, it really just started out as me like being a consumer of it. So like I remember growing up in the 90s and taking the big giant box computer and setting it on the floor of my room when I was growing up in high school, and playing Diablo for hours throughout the night when I was supposed to go to sleep and like get ready for school. And then that turned into World of Warcraft, and online MMORPGs kind of really took off. And once my life became like busy and no longer had really like time for that, and we started the company, like I was still very passionate about like those types of brands. The problem with when we started was I knew that if I wanted to cater to that sort of customer base, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, just like manga and just comics in general, those companies, Marvel and all of that, are backed by a lot of money, which means their artwork and everything that they do is the level of, Marvel and, DC and all that kind of stuff. So when we came out with the brand, originally we threw out some concepts and ideas of label art and, for, neither here nor there, but we thought maybe we might start it out like differently, like a little smaller. Maybe we'll just use like our wax seal as like the main focus of it, and maybe like a little story about a character instead. And when we decided to switch to like the actual artwork itself, I was like, we can't like not do this right.
I think it's worth noting too, we had no money.
Nope.
So a lot of this came down to, in his brain, it was, this is what I want to do. And in my brain, I'm like, well, where are you going to pull the magic dollar bills from to pay for these types of the quality that he wanted? And God had a better plan. And he was like, you don't need to worry about it. I've got it under control.
Mhm.
And he, found an artist and let me just say, I'm the most trusting, probably naive person you will ever meet, and he was willing to work for so little. I thought it was a scam,
Yeah,
and I will
it,
never
it, it
think
was
that.
wild. People say, "Well, how did you find our artist that we've had him for 7 years now?"
Jeff.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Jeff's amazing.
Flew out for Fable.
Yeah, he
Fest.
flew out for Fable Fest. He's got a couple characters of his own, and he was signing autographs and stuff for that too. But people say, "Well, how do you find him?" And I said, "Well, I Googled it." I mean, what do you mean? I Googled comic book artist,
Yep.
and I found a couple people. I found him in a forum answering someone else's question. I clicked on his link, went to his website, and he had all these accolades like listed off. I worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the '90s and Power Rangers and all this other stuff, and his artwork was great. And I was like, I'm just gonna email him. And I emailed him. I'm like, hey, I got this idea. This is what it is. I just pitched him, and I was like, I need 4 characters. I need social media art. I need website banners. I need a logo. I need all this stuff. I got $1,500.
And he did it.
And he was like, sure, it sounds like a great idea. And I remember sitting with her and she was like, nope,
He's gonna take all our money.
you're gonna take it and run.
No, but he really, and obviously we have since paid him a lot more.
Yeah,
But what I love about it, and what I love about our entire team, is they are like in it, right? Like it is a team, and we give him concepts and ideas. He's not afraid to be like, what if we do this instead, or really put his own flair on it. And it's fun for the entire team. We are not unilateral in decision making. We want everyone involved, because we feel like when they get to be part of that, it's good for just everyone at that point in time. And Jeff is no exception. Like, we make sure he feels very valued and very special, and we do not want to do it without him, because he is half, the heart and soul to that.
I think that's where a lot of founders kind of get wrapped up in stuff, right? Like we were talking about this on the way down here, that like the devil's in the details, and like that kind of stuff matters, but almost, I'm such an action taker. Like I'd rather make a wrong decision than no decision. And I consider like not doing anything a choice of doing something. But when dealing with Jeff and our artwork and product concepts, it's very simple the way that I communicate with him. I'm like, hey, I want to do something for Halloween. Let's do a zombie for Beard. And but instead of just being like a zombie, like let's do a zombie that, I don't know, maybe was like a teacher zombie, and then like let's make the woman's version a cheerleader or something like that.
Mhm.
And that's all I do.
Right.
And then he just gives me back what he gives me, and it works out, and he's able to be creative, and we just 90% of the characters we do is just like one sentence. I want a cowboy, roping a tornado in a storm. And he's like, cool. And he'll just draw it up and send me a sketch, and I'll be like, great. And then
Think about it, this is what Disney did.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, to really promote the whole brand of all things Disney is these characters and telling stories and these fables, and was able to sell, not only products,
Mhm.
but also an experience, right? So you've brought in products with an experience, right? Talk a little bit about, like, you guys seem to be putting out content at a level that most, let's call it small team. You got a small team,
Yeah.
husband, wife team. What's the frequency? How does it start? I know I've worked with Jeff before. He's done some great stuff for me as well. But walk me through, like, what's the flywheel look like of content generation for you guys and the ad sets and stuff like that?
Man, I feel like we're not doing near enough.
Yeah, so we actually joke about it because we're like, gosh, we're like not doing enough. But and we have big plans for future growth in that. But really what we're doing is we are not, you'd think we would be planned out further than we are. But what we really want to do is we want to stay current and we want to stay relevant. And, we look at what's working and we look at what people are resonating with and we try to make different variations of that. And we also really want to put out what we feel would be valuable. We obviously it doesn't always hit, but we want to put out what feels valuable. And then one thing that's important to me is we want our team involved. So
Mhm.
we are a small team, but we want them in the content. They are part of why we're great. They are part of, I mean, Crystal and Joey that work for us, their husband and wife team, they started with us about a little bit less than 2 years ago, but they started as customers. So Joey was a customer, relocated to Tennessee. At the time, it was his girlfriend. He said, I want my girlfriend to work here. And we said, great. We have the privilege to hire teams like that. And we
Right.
said, great. And they put so much passion and so much effort, along with everyone in the building, but in helping us create content and having great ideas. A lot of it comes from their brains. And for my brain, I'm like, great, you come up with the ideas and concepts, and that way I don't have to do it. So, so it
Yeah,
works out for
but
everyone.
for me, it's also like when we're doing content, it's got to be intentional, right? But it's got to be creative at the same time. So, if our ad buyers come back and they're like, "Hey, we really want you to do a video of like how you make your deodorant or like the process and make like be transparent," I'm like, "Great." Our team, Oscar, go in there and I want you to film Max making deodorant. But at the same time, I want Joey in the background dressed as a knight, just like dancing around.
Right.
So like it's always that little piece of Fable there. Or, have Max come around the corner and just start yelling, hear ye, we've got free shipping on whatever and start yelling at the
We
fulfillment
also
team.
don't have
Yeah.
to convince them for this behavior. This is like they are thrilled with it.
Natural.
Absolutely. There's not, it's not
Well,
like
like
we
she
have to
said,
do this.
most of our employees all started out as customers. Like Joey was a customer, then his girlfriend, and now they're married. His brother, we hired him. So like all three of them are related. We just hired another guy, Brandon, for fulfillment. He was a customer. We just had one person actually send us another application through Fable Fest of like wanting to relocate to like work with us. So like,
Awesome.
and we try to go above and beyond by like almost like immortalizing our employee base, like as the customers and the characters. So like you can go on the website right now and buy the Bard who's Max or the Highlander who's Cam, and they work for us. And
Yeah.
I think that kind of stuff like really brings that ability for them to like feel like
So each
they
employee
are
kinda
part of
has
the
an
company.
associated scent or
Yeah.
product
Yeah.
to their
Absolutely.
persona.
And what's really fun is like, you imagine, like, you think, okay, what would this person smell like?
Mhm.
And what did this art look like? Like with the princess, it was really hard because I'm like, how do you capture what a princess smells like?
Yeah.
But I think we nailed it. And I think, we worked really hard on these variations to make sure it works. But what I love about it is you really can tell if you buy this, you're gonna like it really does smell like it should for the character. So you're kind of telling the story of what it should smell like automatically. But in addition to that, like you said, we really want to create an environment where neither of us have been employers before. And so we kind of, again, figuring out as we go, but it's what's really important to us is that we create an environment that is enjoyable for everyone there, right? We want them to do their jobs well, but we want to give them the authority to monitor that they're doing their jobs. We want to make sure that they are accountable for ensuring the work gets done, but we're not worried about it if they're playing music and dancing around while they're doing it. And we want them to. We like to do like group events, and we took them to the House of Cards last summer, and I think our group has actually grown out of what we can do there now.
I
But
mean, they bring their dogs to work, they bring their kids to work, and we're like, cool, like
yeah,
whatever.
if you're doing your job and you need to do that for the day, that's great. Like
I'm
no
like, as
problem.
long as orders fulfilled and products made and our customers are okay, you do whatever the hell you want to. I'm good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's basically how we feel. We're like, as long as we are doing the core of what we need to make the business run and everyone's doing their part, we're not worried about those tiny little semantics of things. We want them to enjoy their job and hopefully and feel like they're part of the team.
On this constant creation flywheel that you guys started, you kind of did it before AI was what AI is today, before all the image creators and all this stuff. So you guys got a head start in the process that you go through with Jeff. He's actually a professional illustrator. Hand sketches out the sketch, and then you guys kind of draft that up, perfect that, create a character around a scent, right? So kind of just tell everybody exactly like that process of like, okay, we have a scent, say it's pumpkin spice or something, right? So walk them through, let's do the bourbon. I like the smell of the bourbon one that you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
have. So let's do the bourbon one. So like you're gonna release a new scent, and it's a bourbon kind of wood kind of flavor. Tell people how you go about the creativity side of coming up with the story, the illustrations, the ad set, anything on the website, like just like the pieces to put it together.
Well, with the character creation, it actually kind of works backwards. We start with the artwork and concept first.
Okay.
So we're like, it's kind of evolved now to almost like seasonality. So like, oh, it's summertime. What would feel, summer related? So we got a guy called the Refresher. And Jeff drew him with like lemons all over it. So I was like, cool, we'll just like make a lemonade scent out of it. So like we kind of matched the scent profile to what the character is, not really the other way around. When we try to do it the other way around and create a scent first, it doesn't really work for us in the
So
same
you
way.
want, again, you want the art to kind of tell the story of what it smells like. So as he said, if you start with the scent profile, then a lot of times you're going to kind of miss the mark. The art is not going to. And Jeff doesn't normally smell them before they're complete. So he is drawing the art, and then we're passing that along to our team. That the wizard himself used to develop all the scent profiles, but now we have our team is actually doing it for us, and they'll create different variations of it, and then we can smell them and say, yeah, we're good with this one, or make some changes to it. Primarily, we just let them have authority over doing that. But like you said, we had a Father's Day scent that we released several years in a row. We told Jeff, well, we wanted to call it the Everyday Hero, with a father and son, and he drew it with the dad and the son at a fair. We didn't give him any other instructions, but because it was featured in a fair, we thought, okay, well, let's go do
Yeah,
cotton candy
it became
scent.
cotton candy and funnel cakes.
Yeah, and it's been one of our best sellers every summer, but it was kind of his inspiration that drew us to where we are going. There have been a couple that we said, hey, we're getting a lot of requests for this type of scent profile, and we will come up with a concept of art that kind of already accompanies that. But primarily, the scent will happen secondary.
So what we've done is by creating to answer about AI and all this other stuff. We have kind of been very open to learning about AI. The problem is when you create your own level of IP and stories as deep as you do, you kind of almost AI proof your own business before you even have really the chance to like use it. And I say that because like even if I want to say, oh, Chat GPT just dropped 4.0 and it's really great for imagery and it's doing all this awesome stuff, and like you could use this for static ads. I'm like, cool. I throw our artwork in. It cannot recreate our label. It cannot recreate the character. It does not do well, and you can't even get it to work.
And
So I'm
not
like,
only
all right.
that, there's, Jeff's touches
Yeah.
are like we have a character called the Toy Maker that we release at Christmas time. And in the background of the Toy Maker, Jeff drew our other characters as toys and put
Little
them on the
toys. So you
shelf.
have a little gunslinger or a little like doll of the siren, or
There's not
eh,
there's not a there's not an app that
yeah,
can pull on
yeah,
that storytelling
can't do it.
aspect for
But
you.
what it has become like pretty useful for is like workflow things. So like you can train it in a way that like really kind of like knows your vibe after a while, and you have to prompt AI like a ton before it finally kind of catches up with like who you are and what you want out of it. But product descriptions, updates to that's kind of easy. So
Spell checking. Does
yeah,
this
spell
sound good?
checking.
Like, I feel like things like
Yeah,
that
so I
can
could
help.
just copy and paste the product description and say, hey, change this into this character with this type of vibe and this scent profile, and it'll kick out the same iteration. So like you don't have to go back and forth and in the same way and like rewrite everything at the same time. So it
And
helps with workflow stuff
yeah,
a
and
lot.
with a team of people, viewing all of our stuff, you would think that we don't misspell things. No,
Yeah.
we do.
We were talking about this last.
Yeah.
I was just updating the website. We have a character called the Marksman that's been up there for probably 6 years. One of the actual products out of the 7 we sell, when I was updating the website, I realized it was Marksman or Marksmen, so like multiple. So I was like, oh, let me change the E and put it to an A. It's been up there for 6 years.
I mean, there's a lot. Again, you think, oh, there's like spell check in every device you ever. No.
Let's talk about that. So comfortable making mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's okay to make mistakes, and it's not like the perfection is, the enemy against success, right? So like, let's talk about how open you are to making those mistakes and how it really doesn't.
Oh, I just get frustrated with almost like I feel like it's wasted time. Like when I learn a mistake, I'm not mad that I made the mistake. I'm mad that I wasted whatever time it took me to get to that mistake, because I'm like, that's just wasted revenue I could have had fixed.
So it's very unique. I'm sure there are a lot of husband and wife teams that could probably sit here and speak for a long time. I will say, we know each other very well and we are together a lot, but it took a little bit of figuring out of just how different we are in the way that we view tasks. So I myself am much more plan oriented. I like to have a little bit more structure in just what we're doing and who's doing what.
So you're the integrator in the business. You're the visionary.
Well, he's actually the one that does a lot of, but you have to be really ready, because if I open my mouth about anything, if I say I want a toaster oven, he's ordered it before I finish the work.
90% plus of all of the amazing ideas that have got to where we've at has been her. It's just when she's ready to implement or say something, I'm like in the middle of a Zoom call. She's finishing up on a Zoom call, and I'm already installing the app on my side off to the side because I just want to get it done.
Yeah. So we actually talked about a concept with one of our ad buyer team, and they needed him to add a permissions in Shopify. Now, I don't do any of that. I'm not allowed to touch Shopify because I'll break something. And fair enough, because I probably would. But he couldn't even wait for the call to be done to edit the permissions. He had to do it right then and there, because that's how quick he moves. And he feels like every second we don't move, that's our fault, right? So if we're not moving in the direction we need to go, then we are the ones responsible for not getting where we want to be. With that being said, sometimes there is a lack of preparation, and that's where some mistakes come in. But like he mentioned, we're aware of that. And really, most of them are things that at the end of the day, you figured it out. You might not have known it unless you made that mistake. So what are you supposed to do about that? I mean, we made a lot of mistakes that were really expensive, and some that are just typos, and we got to fix those later.
Any major like war stories you have? Like we all have them in business. Setbacks.
We had someone steal our American Express last year.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, talk about that.
Well, we ended up actually about March of last year, we were kind of struggling and trying to figure out like why it just felt like really hard at that time for like cash flow and businesses and everything else. And we were doing a lot of learning with the people we were working with at the time. And through digging just information, because I'm not a financial person at all, and she's really a financial person, but even then it's like we don't, it's not like her both strongest foot forward. She's pays more attention to it than I do. But we're digging around, and I'm looking at this number, and I'm like, why is our marketing budget up 30% from last year? That doesn't make any sense. Like, I know we're spending a lot of more money on marketing at this point, but it still doesn't account for like that large of a jump. Well, come to find out, for the better part of almost 5 months, somebody had taken our American Express and were also purchasing Facebook ads on them. So we were getting those little Facebook things, $900 for Facebook ads come out. But there's so many transactions coming out on a daily basis. I just thought they were mine.
So for those who don't know, Facebook, generally speaking, bills a $900 threshold. So when you reach a $900 threshold, we didn't rock the boat on that.
You're doing that a couple times a day, probably.
They were doing it a lot.
10 to 15 times a day.
Right.
And excuse me. We never really rocked the boat to increase that threshold. We did now, but at that point in time, we just knew to expect Facebook to charge multiple times. It didn't seem out of the ordinary, but what this individual did is they started really small with really small increments, and then they worked their way up.
So for me, we American Express is like a learning card, right? So like
The card that we had was.
Your budgets go up and down depending on like whatever your daily cash flow is. So like it was very commonplace for a card to like not work one day and then work like 12 hours later, and like, with all the business or whatever. So like we would get microtransactions come in, 15 cents, 10 cents, $3, $4, then 900, and it was just so many coming through. Like I didn't really pay too much attention to it. Well, like she said, come to find out, somebody had taken our card and they were also purchasing Facebook ads. We have no idea how it happened. It was to the tune of almost
different ad account.
Different ad account. Facebook wouldn't tell us who it was. American Express wouldn't tell us who it was.
Because it wasn't our ad account, they wouldn't violate that person's privacy. It was about 150 grand.
Could you take your ad account and search by date range and sort, okay, we spent this much money, and then you take your credit card statement and go, oh my gosh, we're what, 100 and something thousand over?
Well, it ended up being, and what it was is the majority of it came in within a 30-day period. So it wasn't.
So it just caught up with it. They started
but you
small.
Didn't catch it for a while.
And then we caught it.
No. And I mean, we were spending, 60, 70, 80, $100,000 a month in ad spend as well. So it wasn't unusual to maybe like, even we wouldn't notice $5,000 difference unless we're looking at the invoices specifically.
And the problem with that is like Facebook releases when they invoice you on those little transactions, like a little tiny like source code. But the source code doesn't match like within the invoicing that it does on your credit statement. So like then you have to individually go in each transact. There's over 900 transactions in question. I was like, I can't do this myself.
If we were looking at them side by side, we probably wouldn't like even catch up with those things until 30, 60 days after it was all said and done.
So how did you get it resolved?
No.
No?
Yes and no. We're still kind of working. We filed a police report. We did all the things, but you think they're not really as quick to get back with us as. So we're kind of still in limbo on that. However, moral of the story is like in the middle of dealing with that, right? Like business still happens. You cannot stop. You cannot say, we're not going to pay you payroll this week because we had a oopsie, So you just have to figure it out, and you have to take that and say, this is just a challenge. It's nothing that we can't handle. People have it all the time.
This is what separates good entrepreneurs from entrepreneurs, right? There's going to be setbacks. We all have them. We've all faced them, and it's keep moving forward in the midst of those setbacks. So
you can't. No, you're
really
can't.
unexpected, but it always. I mean, I'm sure other people are different, but probably not. I think it just like comes down, like you said, like grit. It always ends up working out. You just have to get to the point where it does. And like, we're going through the midst of all this, and we're like, we don't know what to do. We're dealing with Facebook on one side, we're dealing American Express on the other side, and then like probably 30, 45 days after that takes place, and we're kind of figuring out what to do. Facebook's like, here's a $300K line of credit.
Yeah, so we ended up going to build monthly invoicing with them instead of the daily, which again, we didn't even have that opportunity. It kind of opened up right when we needed it the most. And so, but you just gotta figure it out. And I think a lot of people, like you said, we don't let discouragement stop the big picture. And I often, it's hard. It is hard. A lot of people think, oh, more revenue, that means it's just easier. No. It's getting harder and harder as we go
I was thinking
along.
about this. It came to me earlier today, but like as you're growing in business, money becomes easier to make, but stress becomes harder to manage. So like as you're scaling a business, we can do sales volume days now. That was my entire yearly salary as a nurse before, just like on a random Tuesday.
Right.
But then also the bills come in and it's like, hey, guess what? You owe 120 grand to X. And we're just like, all right, well, how do we come up with another 100 grand in 7 days? You know, so like
we joke, we're like, every bill we get now is like 10 grand, 10 grand, 10 grand. We're like, oh, if it's only $1,000, like that's basically
cheap.
free. No, but I think it's a different level of stress when people think of themselves when they're worried about their personal income, and they think of themselves. There's a different level of stress when you have to worry about other people's income. We want to make sure at all times when you're projecting and you're paying someone's livelihood, it's a different world. But it's also a privilege that we get to make jobs and create jobs. And
as we go through this growth, we want to see growth, and we're never satisfied with the growth that we're having.
Absolutely not.
It's never good enough. But then all of a sudden, like you guys get accepted to the Inc. 5000. So that's like a milestone for y'all. Talk a little bit about being accepted to the Inc. 5000.
I mean, we you talk about statistics and where we're at. So like one of the ways, very actually recently, I've learned to kind of mitigate some of that extra stress is just reminding myself of the rarity of where we're at. We're a bootstrapped company. We have been in business now 7 years. We have a $5 million annual run rate. We're a female founder. We have, no investors. We made the Inc. 5000 list. And, I'm terrible at math. So I was like, ChatGPT, calculate this, right? Like, what are the odds? And, it gave us 0.7% of any businesses in the United States or just in general, whatever get to this point. And, when you calculate it as far as odds are concerned, it's literally 1 in a million that would happen in that way. And you have a 1 in 15,000 chance of getting struck by lightning.
Yeah, and we also
and furthermore, like you have a 1 in 300,000 chance of like becoming a superstar like Carrie Underwood.
Yeah. We also we are also just direct to consumer. So, a lot of people are able to hit these larger numbers by getting retail partners that we haven't done yet, although we are looking to expand into that category, but we haven't ventured that. So the fact that we're able to do that all direct to consumer and the amount of orders that have gone out.
So all this is most on your website, right?
Yeah,
Shopify store. You have an Amazon presence?
No.
We
tried
did.
it for a little bit.
Yeah, we did for a little while. But we decided there was some like trademark infringement things going on. So we decided to just
control
kind of
everything on your site pretty much.
yeah, absolutely. And then, so a lot of those numbers and factors, like we made the Inc. 5000 in just Fable Beard Company. Fable Beauty, it's I don't even think we would be eligible yet because of the timeline is concerned. And then obviously our revenues are a lot smaller.
So you learned like this process and you learned the skills and you had a team cranking out Fable Beard Company. And so then you decided to add on Fable Beauty, which is targeting a different consumer, a different profile, but all through the storytelling aspect. That you guys
it's pretty much exactly the same business model, but different products. And
you want to show the difference of the products. I think it's good that you now have figured out how to leverage that. That's really where scale comes into play.
Yeah. So what I will say is that with Beard, I obviously do not have a beard. So as far as the effectiveness of the products, I had to rely on him telling me, hey, these are really good.
Yeah.
I could smell them and say, I approve of this smell. But when it came to the female products, I was extremely particular because I was like, I don't love it. I'm not a very good liar. And so I was like, I cannot tell people to buy our products if I don't love them.
Right.
So we worked extremely hard for a very long time testing and making sure that they were just right because it is a very different experience from beard to beauty. Although a lot of couples share in the love together, but we also want beauty to stand on its own and stand on its own 2 feet.
So separate Shopify site for
Separate Shopify.
separate target demographic, totally.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of crossover, but primarily
separate ad accounts, all that.
Yeah. Primarily, it is, it is its own brand. And what we have found is that beauty is excelling. It's growing quickly and
400% this year.
Yeah, and we have only. We're about less than 18 months in, and when we launched, we didn't even really tell anyone. We just kind of had it there to see customer response, to see what the feedback was, if we needed to make any edits, if the shopping experience was good and people had any, you're always going to run every change you make on the website. Someone's like, hey, is it supposed to say this? And, and so we wanted to figure that kind of out before we really launched live to just start marketing it and getting it out there. And what we found is people love the products and that on its own, it's very different than any cosmetic brand that you're going to find. And I buy them all. Yeah. I consume all of the cosmetics.
Unless people we've created a world that what we've created is a very slow moving thing to build with IP and character creation. Most of these companies that come out with a product and they want to sell a soap or they want to sell a perfume and they want to put a character on it, they're like, hey, let's go license Disney and let's go pay them to put their character because we know the popularity and the fan base of that character is going to aid into selling our product. And we're like, let's just make our own characters, which is a very much longer road. Disney's been around, 60 years, 70 years now. So like, it's very much a longer play and we understood that, but it's also became like authentic and like, that's our brand It's not the products. Like, we could take our characters and storytelling at this point and branch it to anything we want to. But right now we're focused on
Just
beard
like
and
you
beauty.
said, it is a team. So this right here is the Valkyrie, and this is Crystal. She's our lab manager. She, for a very long time, was the only female in the building with a lot of boys. She handled it very well. There's a few other girls now, but this was her character. This was her vision, and absolutely, people are obsessed with this one.
I love how you have your employees, your team, create their own kind of like persona.
We're not going to tell them who to be, right? Like, they have to kind of decide who they want to be.
Do they get to see like the sales results on that?
Sometimes I will say
they see the volume of orders.
Yeah,
I don't know
for
that.
sure.
I don't
Yeah,
know
they're in
that
the
they
warehouse.
really pay attention, in the same way.
I
but-
will say, Crystal is very, very loved by a lot of our. And when we first launched her character, she wasn't as well known, but she gets gifts sent to her
from customers.
Yeah, customers will send her presents. She's very, very loved. I think if she wasn't married, there would be a line out the door to see if they could marry her. But this is the Siren. This is actually my sister, who is Fable Beauty's customer service representative. And she loves the beach, and she loves the water, and she fit perfectly with the character. And they just look just like them. If you saw me, you'd be like, oh my gosh, that's totally you.
But, very high level, we proved our concept with Beard over many years. And we're like, okay, we know that the concept has been proven. We've have, over 30,000 5-star reviews. We've made all this stuff happen. Let's take it to a larger market. And instead of trying to force one brand to do it, we're just like, let's just create Fable Beauty and take it to a larger market and just start from there. Now, obviously, the competition is much more severe in that. However, the potential and the upside of beauty is, in our opinion, it's going to way outshadow Beard very quickly in a time span.
Because just
makeup,
spend more money there.
Makeup palettes with eyeshadows that are themed around each different character, and each different palette block will be a different color scheme with an underwater theme for the Siren, or an in the clouds theme for the princess, that kind of stuff. AOVs, LTVs, everything is through the roof compared to Beard, as but it's just getting there and getting past that larger, I guess, market share and
Well,
noise.
and like I said, they're really good. I wouldn't ever let them to market if they weren't extraordinary products.
We still have over 7 years, we have less than a 1% return rate on our products.
Yeah,
Is the persona for the female brand like basically the female version of the male that you're targeting?
Kind of. I
That
mean,
gamer
you have
persona?
Fable Beard Co, but it's actually Fable Beauty by the princess. So it's really kind of her brand.
You see the men that are buying your product, their wives, girlfriends, whatever, are they also the customers? So
so there has been a little bit of crossover. What we've actually seen is obviously the initial launch, soft launch with Beauty, was more of Beard customers buying. It was more our loyal fan base already starting into the Beauty brand, and that way we could get good feedback without, we could fix some of those errors. We could make sure we address any issues that we have and get the quirks out. We, with the perfume bottles as an example, we noticed last year a lot of them were breaking and shipping, and we thought we weren't packaging them well enough. Well, really what we're doing is just not leaving enough room for expansion, and they were exploding.
No way.
And but so those were the kind of soft
in
things.
the box,
Yeah. We brought one home from the lab one day just to like test it out on our own, and just
Meanwhile,
even
not
in
knowing
the
what we were
car
doing wrong.
on the way back from the lab, which was like a 5-minute drive, it
Heat,
blew up.
heat causes
that
it.
stuff will you talk about going and adding on Amazon store or whatever. If you don't perfect that before you go to Amazon, the reviews, the returns will just derank you, and it can really hurt you.
Absolutely.
Where there are actually little fixes that you can make, easy fixes to fix that. But if you go to those other channels too early, you can make a mistake.
Totally understandably, because I would be upset if I received, but that's kind of why we waited, right? We wanted to work out the quirks to make sure we were addressing any issues that we had ahead of time.
Well, and it's also kind of, beauty is really like main stage, right? Like, when you're talking about men's grooming and stuff, like, sure, it's a large marketplace and there's a lot of, potential in that industry, but it's almost like playing the side stage at a festival compared to being a mainliner, when you come into the beauty
in
industry.
comparison, I mean, we've crossed over, I think, 10,000 orders in beauty pretty pretty effortlessly.
Get that little Shopify little
Yeah.
bag.
Yeah, we're waiting for it.
They get it
What's
about
funny is
6 months later.
they launched it with Beard well after we didn't even know it was a thing. So we had already hit like the 100,000.
Oh wow, good for
order
you.
before
mark.
we got the 10,000 one in.
Yeah, we never got the 10,000 because we were already at the 100 by the time they even released it. But it was like a year and a half later because they had just come out with it, and I guess they went back to the nearest threshold for that. But it's fun, super fun. I love that stuff. It just makes you feel, it's like, this is an accomplishment, and they feel that it's worthy of one because it's a rare thing to be able to do. But yeah, pretty effortlessly on beauty. I don't want to say effortlessly, but comparably.
Well, we were able to just take everything that we have learned over the years and just
scale, like
There you
turn it
go.
on. That's scale.
So
right
like we
there.
had cash flow of Beard to really kind of like push cash flow of beauty. We already had the concepts in place as far as like the
already had the infrastructure
of the
packing,
fulfillment and
shipping,
everything else.
scent profiles.
It was really just me like creating another website over like the course of like a week. And then, us branching our ad department into the same place, but two different teams, one working on beauty specifically and one working on Beard to, they collaborate together, but it allows them each to have like their own little flair. But
Yeah. And like I said, the products took the longest really at all this because I just love them so much. I mean, our deodorant, it is the best deodorant. And I would buy every natural deodorant and try them. And I would think, these don't work.
and
Until ours.
with that like turn of concept, you always hear people say, oh, well, your first 100,000 is harder to make than it is for your first million and your first 10 million. A lot of that's actually kind of true. It does. Like beauty almost feels like no effort compared to
where
Beard.
it was when you first started Beard.
Absolutely. I mean, our first year we only did
All the growing pains, all the
9,000
learning curve.
9,000 in sales our entire first year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
And now you're doing 5
we
million
launched
a
in
year.
April, so it was not quite a
still-
12-month
that's-
cycle, but yeah, it
You
was
do
rough.
now that in a day.
And
Yeah.
here I am on a computer up in a room above my garage just trying to sell my wife because I quit my job 2 days after we started the
and
brand.
I am very loving and very kind, but I'm also not one to baby him.
Oh, she's pressure and diamonds. man.
I am like, you're capable of this. So anything less than this is like, I know you can do this, so you better do it. And he listened. And so it all worked out. But even
when we first started Facebook ads, I was like, all of our numbers work really well right now. I really think we just need more traffic. I think Facebook ads is the way to go. And like we started like interviewing like small agents. It was like $5,000 agent, at that time. And I was just like, maybe I could just like teach myself instead. So I like went
This is
to
probably pre-iOS 14.
YouTube
Like,
University
Yep.
and taught
Yeah.
myself how to run ads. And she comes and she says, well, I'm like, well, we have $500. And she's like, great. If you lose it, you're never doing ads again.
Yep,
And I'm
I
like,
did. I'm like, you better make
okay.
this work.
And that's the primary traffic source for you guys now.
Yeah, I mean, we
Meta?
do well over $1 million in ad spend a year now.
Do you do any other top of funnel traffic?
I mean, we've tried things, but
Yeah, so Meta is king. We do other forms, but I wouldn't contribute that to the majority of the success. Kind of
Most
dabbling
of the top
into.
of funnels coming from Meta. Then you
We do
repeat
organic
customers,
everywhere.
organic, right?
We do
Organic.
affiliates. We do. We do some TikTok. We stopped with the potential of it getting shut down, not getting shut down.
TikTok's been challenging for us.
I think it's just challenging all the way around. I think what you're looking for is the holistic approach to whether or not you're gaining attention in the right capacity. And I think what's also really hard going back to cranking out content is that you do want things that feel organic per platform, which can be challenging when your focus is more so on one. You have to really think like, okay, what's going to perform well on this
I
one?
feel like TikTok works really well for either single product stores or even more single product stores that are more viral in nature for like TikTok shop itself. I think past that point, you almost have to either be a viral creator of your own that also has a brand or a product. But I don't feel like TikTok shop really functions just like, hey, any brand could just like go upload their catalog and just like start making sales. It doesn't even happen. Like we do close to 10,000 plus orders a month. And I think we've sold like 6 bottles of beard oil on TikTok
Yeah,
shop.
you have to kind of, it's kind of one of those like cart before the
What's
horse,
your AOV?
right? On beard, it's about $45 and $50, and on beauty, it's about $65.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an AOV thing. I don't know if it's a multi-product thing. For products that I think over $75 for like TikTok, I think it's not that fast. I think you got to have like that $30 AOV.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also just that the amount of people pushing the content, right?
Yeah.
Like we were kind of the only ones pushing our own content in that. So we also had limitations in making sure we got on the TikTok shop. They're very picky with what and it took a long time.
It was a hassle.
Yeah.
To get on TikTok
a
shop.
big hassle. And so that took us a while to do.
Meta's got its own issues of, ad account stuff, but it's been challenging with TikTok. Yeah, I want to switch gears. You started earlier on. You mentioned something about like AOV, LTV, and as a Shopify owner, I don't know if y'all go do this, but like every time I get out of a meeting, every time I wake up, I'm looking at certain statistics.
I have
Every
my phone.
20 minutes.
If I'm at a stoplight, I'm checking metrics.
I'm at a stoplight. I will look and say, how many orders do we get?
Yeah.
Or like, what? So what are the top?
It's almost it's
where do you
almost
go
like a
insane.
curse.
It is. I'll be at a barbecue with family and friends, and I'll go to the bathroom and I'm looking at sales, right?
Yeah.
What are your top 3 to 4 like things that you go to immediately to look at? I mean, is it like,
it's changed. A lot of our learning over the last 18 to 24 months has shifted, like my personal mindset on metrics we were looking for that I didn't pay attention to before. Early on, it was very much just ROAS all the time on ads.
so ROAS, just straight in Meta ROAS?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's how
where
I ran
we
the ad
gained-
account for like probably
So you're looking
5
for
years.
what 3 plus? 4
I
plus?
was running it like a drop shipper. So if it was doing over 3,
You're throwing
I was
gas.
scaling money in it.
Yeah.
And then it would like work for like 4 or 5 days, and then it would drop down to like a 1.6. And then I'm like, what the hell? And I'd put
Well,
up new creative and flip it again.
In all
and just-
fairness to him,
You learned that. I want to say you took the time to learn that.
he learned, and the way he works, and I will applaud him because I can't do this. And he works this way, and this is the way he, to this day, does things. And every single thing he does. If someone says, hey, I want you to do this, he will immediately do it. If he does not know how to do it, he will find online somewhere. He will watch a video. He will stop the video, do step 1, play it, stop it, go do step 2.
awesome.
He follows along and does it. And that's what he did with ads.
And then but if you get to like, let's say an 80% efficiency at doing it, 70 to 80%, you can do it at a B or C level. That helps you hire the right person.
Absolutely.
You know what to look for.
Even to this
Yes.
day, he's in the ad account every single day.
And
Again, I'm not allowed to touch anything because I'll break it, but I go in there and look at things with him and ask questions, but he has a general understanding of just what certain campaign structures mean. What
and
is
see,
this actually
as
doing?
I've shifted out of that like ROAS mindset, now it's mainly customer acquisition and blended, ROAS just for like the whole health. And we're now following like our LTV cohorts and stuff a little more strongly, just to make sure that's kind of in line with what we're doing. But once I like learn that, now anybody who's even working on our account, and basically like you can mention ROAS to me like 3 times as a success, and if you don't stop, I will get rid of you.
So ROAS, we do view ROAS in certain factors. Like obviously there's a point in time where you're like, we can't just throw money away.
Yeah, but you get ad buyers coming all the time. They're like, oh, we can get you a 7 to 10x on Google. I'm like, well, yeah, because you're doing branded traffic and you can do it in your sleep in 5 minutes.
That Facebook's getting all that.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
Totally.
But we are looking at customer acquisition cost. We're looking at LTV, and then obviously though the challenge is there still is a revenue amount that we need monthly. And as you grow, you're like, great, we'll take on this expense. We just moved to a new facility, and
So you look at top line revenue month to month, LTV to CAC ratio. Yep.
yeah, and that's kind of how we judge things. But so there are times where we have to kind of sacrifice one to get revenue where it needs to be, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So, we want to make sure we keep all these metrics in line. At the end of the day, sometimes you have to make judgment calls of like, hey, this is going to be better right now, and we'll fix that later, or, whatever it might be.
Any seasonality to the business?
A little bit.
E-commerce, typically.
We notice more seasonality now with buyers as far as like our LTV is concerned. Maybe a little bit like of adjustment in CAC, probably like maybe 30% shift at the most, I would say, between seasonality.
But fall tends to be,
Yeah.
we lovingly release what we call Falloween, starting in August. And it is truly the kickoff of the season.
Yeah, so like most of
So you
our
brought
characters.
that into e-commerce season.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Christmas holiday.
And
Most
what
of
we
our
have-
characters before that point are like they're fun and they're airy. It's like the troll sitting under a bridge, and then we, one of our characters he does a lot of cosplay and he actually dresses up at characters and does ads for us now. But last year for Halloween we turned him into the slasher, and he was a serial killer with arms and limbs hanging from the background. So
None
like
of those ideas came from my brain, but no.
But they people love it. So it's a time for that like little bit of darkness, and people enjoy that Halloween season.
And the fragrances are out of this world,
fragrances match,
so.
and that's when pumpkin spice and apple cider and all that stuff.
And everything I'm obsessed with. And my pumpkin pillows come out promptly in August too.